Welcome to the Red Sneaker Podcast, your guide to success in the worlds of writing and publishing. Now, here's your host, best-selling author and founder of the Red Sneaker Writers Center, William Bernhardt.
Hello, Red Sneaker Writers. This is episode 28, going out on September 23rd, 2019. This podcast is for Red Sneaker writers, people who are serious about having a writing career and want some practical knowledge to help them do it. My interview for this podcast is with Michael Beverley of AMS AdWerks. That's AMS for Amazon Marketing Services. This company advises and helps writers create an Amazon marketing and advertising campaign that will best promote their books. You've heard me say on previous podcasts that Amazon has arguably become a pay-to-play environment. That is, if you're not advertising your books, they're probably not going to sell very well. Michael can give you some great tips on how to market your books well. We'll also have the usual segments on news and writing tips, but on this podcast, I also promised last time to give more information about the upcoming WriterCon cruise, our first ever combination of conference and retreat and cruise. It's taking place February 2nd to 9th, 2020. We're departing from Galveston, Texas on February 2nd, coming back a week later on the 9th, and in between visiting Roatan, Honduras, Puerto Costa, Cozumel, and other places as well. I will be on the boat. Cherry Fuller, Melanie Henry, Barry Friedman, who was interviewed just last time on the podcast, will be on this boat, and other writers, giving you more than 20 hours of writing instruction on topics including, of course, core writing skills, but also business and marketing topics like publishing and agents and marketing your books and pitching to editors and agents. You will also receive an up-to-date writing handbook that I have curated myself of over 100 pages in length, plus you'll receive 100 hours of recorded lectures on writing topics. You will even, get this, you will have a chance to pitch a first-rate literary agent who is interested in the kind of books that you are writing or have written. And hey, you're on a cruise ship, so it doesn't really get much better than that. And if you are listening to this and thinking, oh, I could never afford this, hey, do me a favor, look at the prices on my website before you make that decision, because we have rocked the world and worked hard to get these prices down as low as they can possibly be. And I think we've been pretty successful. The prices vary depending on the kind of room you want and whether you have a roommate or not, but they are rock bottom low. So if you're interested in the cruise, please visit my website, williambernhardt.com. Click on the Red Sneaker Writers tab at the top on the toolbar and read more about the conference. If you have any more questions, just email me, wb@williambernhardt.com. And now, the news. This is the time of year when a lot of writing conferences seem to take place. Of course, we're just coming out of WriterCon, the biggest and best of them all, at least in my opinion. But we've also recently seen Digital Book World and the Writer's Digest Conference, and a lot of interesting information has come out of them. Here's one thing I thought particularly fascinating coming out of Margot Atwell's talk at Digital Book World. She talked about Kickstarter, which I've mentioned on previous podcasts and in my online blog, is now a source that many people are successfully using to publish their books, and other crowdfunding it basically instead of going to a traditional publisher. She had some fascinating statistics. First of all, according to Atwell, 80% of all publishing projects, if they get at least 25 backers, are successfully funded. Think about that, 80%. I mean, if you don't have at least 25 backers, honestly, you're not really trying too hard. But 80% of them successful? And here's an even more interesting, at least to me, follow-up statistic. The highest success rate for these publishing projects is in the anthology category. Yeah, collections, like short stories by a single author or many authors, or nonfiction pieces, or even poems. The highest success rate is for anthologies, which should be surprising and perhaps heartening, because what you hear all the time is that agents and publishers won't take those books because they say anthologies don't sell. Well, apparently that depends on how you go about it. And I think for anybody who has a collection of short fiction or short work of any kind, this is good news. Maybe it's time to start thinking about crowdfunding your next anthology instead of going the traditional agent and publisher route. Item number 2 has to do with an outfit called Hoopla, that's Hoopla, which, as you may already know, distributes digital media, like audiobooks, of course, to libraries. And I might add that Draft2 Digital now distributes to Hoopla. I've mentioned Draft2 Digital before as a great company which really helps authors get their books out there into all the online markets. And now they've got an association with Findaway Voices to help distribute audiobooks. Anyway, they've got Hoopla on their radar. Here are some interesting facts, though, pertaining to Hoopla, which, as I said, delivers digital books like ebooks, but also audiobooks, which is what I want to talk about here. You probably have heard me say before how audiobook sales have spiked in recent years, have just exponentially grown in sales. But according to Hoopla, first, there's been a huge increase in audio relating to children's books. Not so much in retail sales, but in libraries where Hoopla distributes. They're seeing a huge increase in audiobooks outperforming retail for the children's department. Also, Hoopla, and this is overall all kinds of books, they've seen an enormous increase in the home use of audio. Home use, not in your car, not when you're walking around with AirPods in your ears, but at home. And here's a quote from Brad Rose of Hoopla. He said, quote, "We were shocked people were listening to audiobooks at home, doing nothing otherwise. 8 to 10 at night is the most common time to listen," end quote. Well, if you're like me, I thought that was just completely eye-opening. I think of people listening to an audiobook when they're driving. That's when I listen to them, most commonly, during the day. But at home, when you're not washing the dishes or cooking or making the beds, but just at home doing nothing but sitting there listening to your audiobook at 8 to 10 at night, that was an eye-opener to me. Clearly, the amount of time people are devoting to audiobooks and the way they're using audiobooks is changing. Now more than ever, Red Sneaker writers, if you have audiobook rights to some property that you've written or own the rights to, this is the time to get that audiobook out where people can enjoy it. Now, let's talk writing tips. Maybe it's misleading for me to keep calling this segment writing tips, because I know when I say writing tips, people think now he's going to discuss whether to use the Oxford comma or something like that. My feeling is that those kinds of craft-oriented bits of advice are already in those 8 Red Sneaker books and those yet to come. And so I usually try and go in a different direction in this segment of the podcast. And today I'm going to talk about marketing, which will dovetail nicely with the interview with Michael Beverley. But bear in mind that marketing can affect your writing, what you choose to write, and how you choose to write it. So I think this is valid. Anyway, there were 2 reports from those conferences, recent conferences I mentioned, that I thought would be appropriate to talk about here and make a nice intro to the interview with Michael. First comes from Amy Collins from New Shelves Books, who was talking at the conference about how to find a really targeted list that is effective for promoting your books. Of course, you'll hear Michael saying the importance of finding keywords, which are often other authors' names when you're doing Amazon advertising. But whatever it is that you're doing for your marketing, you need to understand who your target audience is. For that matter, some people would say, if you're going to write a book effectively, you need to be thinking about not just how do I please me, how do I make me happy, but how do I please others? If all you're thinking about is amusing yourself, you really can't be too disappointed if the book doesn't sell. You want a book to sell, then maybe it's not the most important thing, but some consideration should be given toward thinking about your audience. So what Ms. Collins recommends is that you start by thinking about who is my target audience? Who would be most likely to buy this book I'm writing? And then think about those people. Who are they? Where are they? How do they spend their time? Where do they shop? What are they going to be interested in? And the more specific you can be, the better. Don't just say women. That's too easy. We all know that more books are bought by women than men. What segment of women? Is that younger people or older people? Don't just say science fiction readers. Get more specific. Is this paranormal, romance, dystopian young adult readers, or what? The more specific you can be, the better. Ultimately, what you want to come up with, according to Collins, is a list of 24 comparable authors to you and your book that you're writing or hoping to promote. Then, take at least 3 of those, the 3 that you think are most dead on target, and go to a website called Yasiv, that's YASIV, which helps you find other similar authors. You put the name of an author into the Yasiv, hope I'm pronouncing that right, search engine, and it will give you a list of all their books and other related books. Click around and find the most popular ones, making sure that the genre is the genre you're writing, because some people do write more than one genre. Make sure it's an on-target choice, and come up with some good targeted authors or books. Then go to the Amazon product page for those books, which you can click to straight from Yasiv. Look at that product page and then scroll down to where you get the bestseller ranking. Every book is on a couple of lists. Probably Amazon typically lists the ones in which the book is most prominent. Find out what those lists are. Click on the lists. See who the best-selling author is in each of those. Maybe that's your keyword for your advertising. Maybe those are the authors you should be finding out as much about as possible. Now, just to be clear, other authors are not your competition, which is something Amy Collins said on her panel, but you are trying to find out about what's put them at the top of the list. What is it people like? So read those authors. Sign up for their Twitter page or Facebook, sign up for their newsletters, find out as much as you can about their books and what's making them work. And then see if you can apply that to your own work and your own marketing campaigns. Let me add one more tip to this list that Ms. Collins didn't mention. While you're looking at the bestseller lists on Amazon, in addition to clicking on the list and seeing what the top books are, go to the section, usually it's about half a scroll down the page, go to where it says new releases in that category. Click on that list. Find out what the top new releases on that list are, because here's the thing. If you're using those keywords for instance, for Amazon advertising, the best, most successful authors might result in a too expensive click-through rate. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, wait until you hear the interview from Michael, and I think that will make it more clear to you. If I'm advertising a legal thriller and I put in John Grisham's name, that's going to be way too expensive. If you're going for horror, Stephen King is the obvious choice, but way too expensive. But on the new releases list, you might get a name that is doing well, but is new, and consequently everybody in town isn't putting that name in their advertising keyword lists yet. Now, you may have to monitor your advertising. After another week or two, everybody else will catch on and that name may get more expensive. But you might get a few grace weeks in there when you can have a great targeted advertising keyword that doesn't cost you too much. Second report I wanted to make had to do with a panel headed by Peter McCarthy, who's over at Ingram's. He was talking about marketing too, and what I thought was